Shirt show. All right, let's go.
Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Shirt man!
All right! Episode 222 of Shirt Show. We're talking with Max from Family Industries in California. Let's go!
That is exactly how my day's kind of going right now. So good thing.
Great. We did this whole thing and didn't record it.
That would have been the third time. I think we've only done it. No, sorry.
I only remember one solid time, and that was apparently with Gabe, where we did like half the episode unrecorded.
Right. We've never done a full episode where we forgot to record. What we did was we lost an episode. That's what happened. Yeah.
That was when we tried switching to, we tried cheating on Zoom.
Yeah. And it didn't work out, but here we are back with Old Faithful.
It's like I never left you.
How you doing? I know you haven't had much sleep. Are you gonna be okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
Just a little bit of brain fog, but I'm good. It's worth it.
Yeah, you flew across the entire country yesterday. One shot. No, you landed. You connected.
Denver for like a second.
Did you?
I went literally right from one plane onto another plane, like no layover, really.
You said you got, you had ordered a burger for dinner, and then I texted you. I said, I hope your burger was good. And you said it was not. So why was it? Describe it.
It was fucking gross. Like, I think I had a stomach ache when I got home from eating it. So I ordered on the United app, I ordered the meal, and I was like, oh, burger sounds good. Got a burger. And I've never fully like understood how they cook these meals on flights, because sometimes you get them and they're really good. And then sometimes, like yesterday, not so good. It just basically, she brought me out like if you like microwave or overheat like a bun, it turns hard.
Yes. No, I know that. Yeah.
So like the bun was hard as hell. And then like the burger was open face, and it was just like a gray meat patty with like, it looked like cheese had been like melted and then over melted, where it kind of has like bubbly like sponge texture to it. And
did you eat it, or did you just?
Oh, I ate it. I ate it, of course.
I think I could be wrong. I think how they do this is that it's cooked pre like boarding. So like they load it on the plane and it's already in its tray cooked and ready to go, and they just like keep warm, like it stays warm. I don't think
I think they heat it again. They have to.
How do they do that?
Like, it's like ripping hot when I got it. Like I couldn't even touch it.
How would they?
I feel like it's in like a steam bag or something, and they just like microwave it for like 40 seconds or something.
You're saying there's somebody that makes 300 meals like on the plane.
Well, it's not 300 meals. It's first class. So it's like 20 people.
Oh, well, that's a little different. Yeah. Okay. I forgot. First.
You don't get meals in the bag.
On my flight home, I got graham crackers.
Frank.
Right. It all starts with the screen, my guy. And whether it's new stretches or restretches, Frank and his team do it the best. To find out more, go to graphicscreenfashion.com, FFFF.
Rank.com.
Or
greatfuckingscreens.com. Get to see Frank next week.
Yeah, I don't. Really upset about that. Frank, I love you and I will miss you. You need to, you do this at dinner because I know I was invited to go out.
Try to pay.
Dinner. And no, well, he's going to pay. Don't you dare. No. Especially don't pull that shit in Vegas either.
It's my favorite thing to do to Frank.
I was just going to say, leave an open chair for me so that I can be there.
With like a candle, and we'll pour out a drink, a Diet Coke for you.
Here's what we need to do. You need to blow this up right here and put that on the chair.
Yeah. People will just be like, oh, Chris Angel's joining you.
Everybody will lose their appetite. That's what's going to happen. Cleaning screens is no fun, but EasyWay makes it way more funner. Their line of eco-friendly chemicals will make reclaiming screens a whole lot easier. Check them out at easyway.com. EasyWay.
It's the easiest way.
I bet you see mimosa there too.
Hell yeah.
Better. also miss him. You know who else I'm gonna miss?
Me?
GraphX is this. Well, I'll miss you. Yeah, sorry, that was mean, wasn't it? I was thinking of like just all of our buds.
Right.
Mr. Nick Wood, who is just an all around hype man, wonderful human that I don't think I've ever hung up the phone after having a conversation with and felt bad. I've always felt better. That's a great way to put it. I've always felt better. GraphX Source is the source for production ready digital art and remote art staffing. We use them every single day. They can help any size shop from just starting out to humongous size shop. Learn more at graphicsource.com. Next, we have Kevin. I'm sure he will also be there, and I will also miss him. And but I'm going to get to see him on an episode we're going to record right when you guys get back. But speaking of Kevin, choosing the right emulsion for your shop is complicated, and that's why we love Chromaline. Go to chromaline.com to watch Kev's vids or contact him on Instagram at the Emulsion Guru and get the answers you want and the answers you
Need fast
need fast
and efficiently.
and efficient. S&S has been our go-to apparel source since day one with over, I think last week we established
9 million products.
It was 86
Million products.
million brands. They actually probably do have, if you talk about products, they probably do have 86 million SKUs, between, if you think about it, Gildan alone has.
Gildan alone has 1 billion SKUs.
Yeah, between the sizes and the colors and everything. Yeah. So come on. Check them out at ssactivewear.com.
Andy, today's episode is sponsored by American Apparel, the go-to tee of the industry, the original premium tee that has inspired all others. AA is back. Make American Apparel your go-to for premium blanks. And we just got to see a bunch of American Apparel items face to face.
We did. We really did. We really, really did.
Yep.
I got lost in your eyes for a minute there. Okay. Look, have you heard of Screen Print GPT? Because if you haven't, then
I haven't. What is this? Tell me more about it.
I was hoping you would say some more about it.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I do know. Our good buddy Matthew Marcotte made this site, and it is anything and everything you want to know about screen printing. It is a GPT that will help you problem solve your screen printing issues and woes. Also, my favorite part about it is that Matt is constantly making tools, free tools for people to use, like calculators and all kinds of things that have to do with print industry. So go check it out. Go to screenprintgpt.com. Ask it your deepest, darkest desires.
I'm still over here like amazed, like my mind's blown that he made a calculator, like you can
A Texas TI.
like you can actually go, if you wanted to, say like 4 times 4 and it'll give you the answer.
Yeah.
Fucking Matt, man.
It's
Matthew
wild.
Michael, I love you. You're impressive. Amazing. Okay, well, there's a few things going on. One, it's a short week. So there was Labor Day yesterday.
Yeah.
And now there's just 4 days and you've got to try and pack everything in. You got to cram it in 40 hours into 32. And do you know what I just did? I just created a sign up sheet. I just did some math. Yeah, that's true. But no, one of the things why I was late getting on is one of the things I did was we created a map for today, Wednesday, and Thursday. So 3 maps, 3 sign up sheets for like a bonus hour. So we're going to run an extra hour every shift.
Oh. To make up for yesterday?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it won't fully, but it'll help.
Right.
We get a little something,
Better
like
than
done
nothing.
because we're just got too much to do and not enough time to do it. And so we did a voluntary sign up and we'll see how that goes to try and keep some presses running. I mean, it's just like, what do you do? What do you do in these situations?
Like, I'm not having a bad day by any means. It's just like getting back and then not sleeping last night very well and getting up this morning. And then also I scheduled meetings today. I have fucking no idea why I would do that to myself. But I scheduled 2 meetings with prospective new clients and I had a marketing meeting first thing this morning. And then I went and ordered all the stuff like from Dunkin', picked it up, brought it here. They skipped one of the people's drinks, and they didn't have any of my breakfast food. So that was like the start of my morning. And then
Did you go back there, or what happened?
No, I didn't go back. I just fuck it.
Mm.
And then yeah, it's just been like, little things when you get back, and it's just everything's good. There's nothing bad. It's just overwhelming.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I think that I'm not hating today, and it's not bad, even though there's a
It's not the same as like having your mind shut off, relaxing in Laguna.
No. Yeah, it's a definite mind shift.
And now I have to get into the brain of like working this week and then going to Vegas all next week.
Whose fault is that?
Mine.
So I mean,
it's not a fault. It's good. It's stuff to do.
No. Yeah. There you go.
It's different.
Always positive. So let's just do it totally different today. I'm going to admit him in, and then while he's here, we'll like talk about what we're going to do. You like it? This is going to be different. This is going to be different.
Okay.
Right, here we go. This is going to be totally different. It won't be the typical, he comes in and then you're like, we're waving like this. No, it's going to be different.
Well, we did just see him too. So
we did.
Hey, bud.
Good morning. How you guys doing? Or I guess afternoon now for you.
I know. Yeah, it's 1:05.
Back on East Coast, or
yeah, I'm still at your time at heart, and then I'm dragging through today.
I think at 5 days, your jet lag, whatever there is, and there's not much. It's just 2 hours for me. 3 hours, a little bit more. But I think at 5 days, you just start getting used to, like I did, waking up at like a normal time in California. And then now when I got used to that, then now I'm back here and now I have to get used to this. And so it's going to take about 5 days. I think it's about 5 days.
Oh, that just means you guys got to come back and then get used to it again. And then...
Yeah.
Well, basically you are. He is next week. He's going to Vegas.
I'm going to Vegas all next week.
Perfect. Well, then don't even change your time. Just
yeah. I'm just going to stay a fucking zombie for the next week and then we'll just do it again.
Max, Dylan, can I say a little bit about Max, and then maybe you can right in front of him too, and make him feel like make this all like real awkward. Yeah. So like I met Max first in Chicago at a Print Hustlers where he was there representing Family Industries, and they were talking about live printing and live activation. And I think that everyone, including me, were super impressed. And this was way back in 2019 or 18 or something like that. I don't remember the exact year, but it was like pre-DTF and like in the world of like, what do you mean transfers? How do you do that? And so like it was, I think you were telling us when we were visiting you, like somebody was doing DTF there and you're like, huh? Like it's whatever, like maybe we'll look at it. And then everything changed obviously for everyone. But yeah, you are very, like if there's anybody to speak on live printing and like live activation, you're the world's authority. And so, Dylan, do you want to say anything here quick?
I can't fucking add to that. You just called him the world authority.
That sounds pretty tough. I need that on a shirt, I guess.
Family Industries World Authority.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with us on the back in big letters.
Yeah, that was 2019.
I think the cool thing is that we've been friends and we know each other in shops and whatever, but it's funny. We got in the car after we left Max's and we're like, wow, that guy's such an asshole. No, we got in the car and I think Joanne had said something about like, oh, it must be crazy to like do stuff for some of these companies like Target and whatever. And Max, if you don't want us to say that out loud, we can bleep that, but
no, it's all good.
It's just one of those things. And they were like, and I was like, yeah, well, you got to think like in my mind, there's a couple companies that stand out that do these activations and whatever, but a lot of them just do kind of like my super small scale of just like the screen printing part or the heat pressing part. They don't do all this crazy shit. They do, the basic stuff, and they don't do it as insane as you do. And then you were gracious enough to show us around your place. And it was cool because you're like, oh, here's the screen printing shop or whatever. And we're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, this is awesome. This is just a great shop in its own. Then you're like, hey, let's go over to this R&D room. That's basically like, here's all the crazy shit we try to make. And we like figure it out before we go do these activations. So seeing that was really cool because it's kind of like just a playground of what rad shit can we do for people? So
Yeah, it was
I don't
fun.
know.
It was fun to have you guys out and showing you all around and kind of, kind of getting the lay of the land as far as like how we set everything up and kind of like just the structure of the business. Cause like you said, we have a screen printing shop and it's a portion of our business, but I would say it's not like we're a live company. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's how we've always been structured. And that's not to diminish our screen printing shop because we have a great team. We have a ton of people here who do an amazing job, with that portion of the business too. So I don't want to diminish that portion.
No, I just think that, like I said, like when you think of big companies wanting to do these activations or these whatever, you have to be, what did you just call them? World authority. You have to be at the top of the list of like, this is the place to call, because like we were sitting down having quesadillas and chips and whatever. And you're like, oh, I'm doing this one right now where I'm fucking making custom tennis balls. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's like
30,000 of them for the US Open.
Right. And that's what I mean is it's not like, oh, let me call this local company to come print some t-shirts. They're like specifically making tennis balls for the US Open.
And I think that's when it kind of what comes to what you were telling us earlier is that it's about a customer experience. It's about creating live experiences. Or how did you word it? Because you said it really well and it made total sense to me.
Now I'm going to forget it because I'm on the spot, right?
He sounded really good earlier. Now it's
I know you put the spotlight onto me, and I just completely mess up everything. No, it is. It's experiential marketing, right? So basically, what we're doing is we're connecting brands to their market, right? So they have a demographic that they're going after, and we're creating experiences around the merch or the event itself to connect kind of like the pieces, right? So when somebody goes to an event, there's so many things that you can do at these events, and a portion of that is like having a takeaway. And I think creating that experience of being able to be a creator or like be a part of creating merchandise is really special for people. And ever since the pandemic, and especially out of the pandemic, experiential marketing has just like blown up because people are sick of being in their houses. So the experiential portion of being on site at these events and creating those kind of like those takeaway memories is huge for, corporations, companies, whatever it is. It's like there is that specific like need for them to create those like kind of bonding experiences between the brand and the consumer.
right. Well, it's like one of the reasons why we came out there was we went to this SNS and American Apparel event. And the thing is it's kind of like you said, like instead of just having American Apparel and SNS making a couple cool like posts online or an email blast or something, they're like, no, let's do like an actual event where people can come out, touch, feel, have fun, have drinks, have this experience and do the whole activation. It's good to just have that in their face and something they're going to remember, and they're going to have a takeaway from family, and they're going to have, tooth gems and pizza and all this other stuff that's like more ingrained in their brain, I guess, than just scrolling past another ad.
Yeah. And like we kind of talked about it, it's like they were creating content and not in a negative way. They were creating content to, show that American Apparel is, making a comeback and that people can use their brand for, whatever, streetwear, or if they're creating their own brand or printing onto items. They had kind of those influencers come out so that they can understand like, hey, that we can use this when we're doing our drops online or we're creating our merchandise. And you guys are influencers too, because you were there, you're
well,
covering the event. So you're the big influencers.
We were there for the pizza.
Well, one of the things I think I guess makes it stand out is that they could have had, just a table and with blank shirts, and you could have walked up and said, oh, here's this American Apparel shirt. It's blank. Cool. Thanks for the free shirt. I can take it home, wash it, wear it, and like all this kind of stuff. But instead they elevated the whole experience, and you could walk up to this, which is what you created, walk up to a tablet and type in, customize your name, personalize, sorry, not customize. There's a difference between custom and personalize. You could type in your name, and then all of a sudden it's, it goes down this assembly line and it's on the back of their shirt and they walk away with the shirt with their name on it. And so that gets me to like this. It's just better. It's better than like going to, like, for example, going to a Cardinals game. So you go to a Cardinals game and there's a souvenir bat, or there's it's hat day or whatever day it is. You get this thing that's already made and you have nothing to do with, you're not involved in the process of making it. And so it's still pretty cool to get, but I think the experience that you create is an elevated experience.
All I heard was working with Max and family is better than a Cardinals game.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I'm good with that.
I don't know how people will take this, but I took it as a very interesting thing. And it was funny. Like, I think Max said it to me at the event as kind of just like a throwaway, like we were talking or whatever conversation. But I said something about the line and he's like, people will stand in line for anything. And it was a good thing because it's one of those things. It's like you create this buzz in the corner of like people getting this takeaway, this shirt or whatever, but it was like people had no problem standing in line. And like at that event, like we were standing in line, but we were talking, like the four of us were talking, and we had drinks and we were eating pizza and we were doing this whole thing, and it was an experience all the way through. It's not like we were like, fuck, I'm sitting here waiting in this line and it's a dread, this sucks, whatever. So I just thought that was interesting, that it was kind of like, even though they're waiting in line, it's a whole thing. Like it was a whole vibe in itself.
Yeah, it's like you're creating, there's like the experience at the end of, not the end of the line, it's part of the line itself, but you're waiting. Like, it's like if you're going to like Disneyland, right? You're like waiting to get on the ride and they have all these cool things happening around, the queue when you're at Disneyland. I mean, they do some amazing things when you're waiting. So I wouldn't say it's exactly the same thing. But you're creating like almost like a demand, right? It's like, you show up on site and then you see these things. What are people waiting in line for? And I had made the joke too that if it was the line for the bathroom, people would be waiting for it. If they saw a line, they'd be like, "Oh, cool, wow, there's a line for the bathroom. Right. Like, let me see what this bathroom's like." Because there's an interest and an automatic kind of like, "Whoa, what's happening here?" So they see the line, then they hop in, and then they realize, "Oh, cool, I'm going to get something out of this. Oh, it's a customized shirt." Oh, and then they start thinking, well, "What am I going to put on my shirt?" And then they're standing there. They would be standing in the event 20 feet away, not in a line, not getting anything out of it, but now they're standing in that line to create something of their own. And then they're going to be done and they're going to be able to walk away with a shirt that had, I think, 3 different font choices and puff vinyl and, different customization choices that they could walk away with. So, you're kind of creating the experience when you're there. And a lot of people have never seen it before. And some people have, but I think when you haven't seen something like that before, you get interested and you want to see the process all the way through.
I think that was the other cool thing too, is it wasn't just like you didn't just choose regular vinyl or whatever, or a screen print. You decided to do puff. Now, why do you do that? Just because it's something different? It's something that elevates it even more than just getting a custom shirt, or what's the thinking behind that process?
Yeah, I think just because puff for that kind of like specific demographic is pretty in right now. I mean, we get hit up for puff all the time, whether it's simple designs or complex designs. So kind of fit into that like specific event demographic, right. Like, hey, let's do puff, let's customize it that way. And it gives it a little bit more of a feel. Makes it a little gives it a little bit more like of a special kind of like giveaway versus just something like a regular vinyl, like a jersey or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to elaborate more on the fact, because kind of when we talked about getting together and doing this thing, it was the difference between having an activation or more of an experience for an event, something like this, or for doing this for brands was kind of the discussion, not necessarily tell us about live printing. It's more about why this is important and, how we can do this in our businesses.
Yeah. So I think we were talking about the Toyota as an example. So like Toyota sponsors so many music festivals across the United States. I mean, countless, like for, different demographics, different festivals, hip hop, rock, like whatever it is, Toyota is going to be there and they're going to sponsor a booth and they're going to have their vehicles on site. And one of their main goals when they have their vehicles on site and as a sponsor for these different festivals, right, is they want to get the 18 to 35 demographic into their vehicles. And sometimes people have never been in a Toyota or they haven't seen what the new Toyota is. So what we do is we will set up, a customization station. So for Lollapalooza, we were doing custom keychains with laser engraving and then custom sublimation socks. So we're doing 2 different activations there side by side. And the goal for these attendees is to get them in a Toyota. So what better way to do that than to create the customization kiosks and actually put those inside the vehicle themselves. So people have to queue in line. And then when they go into the vehicle, there is the tablet with the design UI and software inside the car. They're able to customize their keychain or their sock inside the car. And then they hop out. And then when they hop out, their item's pretty much going to be done. So it creates an experience on site. And then they're creating kind of like a little bit of a connection to the brand. And it's not necessarily saying they're going to sell the car to those people, but the next time somebody goes to buy a car, they're like, oh, Toyota had a really cool car that I got in at Lollapalooza. Like, I'm going to go check that one out or test drive it. Right. So it's kind of just like creating like that snowball effect where maybe they see it 3 or 4 times. So for brands, it's really important to create some sort of like, just an inkling in there, like, or a spark to say like, okay, how can I connect to that specific person without it being like traditional advertising or marketing?
Mm-hmm. I think that's something too, like to be said with the car stuff that kind of triggered with me is like, that's what sells you on a car. Like you could walk through a lot and be like, oh, I like the color of that. I like the lines on that. That's cool. But like going and actually sitting in it, you immediately can see yourself either this is your car or not. You know what I mean? You can tell like I could definitely drive around in this.
I mean,
yeah, and it's not like it's not in your face either. It's like, oh, I'm at a music festival. You're not necessarily thinking about like, oh, I have to get into a car to customize something. It's just like, oh, cool, I'm going to get a keychain out of the end of this. It's going to be personalized, mm-hmm. And then you get to get in the car as part of it. So it's almost like you don't realize that that's happening, but at the same time, it is happening.
Right, stuck in the back of your brain.
When they got in the car, did Limp Bizkit start playing? Just curious if like that was like if you could just cue that up.
Right, like just a.
They would have to have more cars there because they would be selling them like crazy if that was the case.
Just driving off Lollapalooza and driving in your new Toyota home.
Exactly. Yeah.
I heard he stole the Lollapalooza show. I don't know if that's true or not, but and maybe that was last year. I can't remember. So I might be getting it wrong, but can you share with us, because you made it look super smooth. Like when we were there, it was running and it looked really smooth, but I was watching and I was trying to figure out how is this running so smooth? How do they know at the end of the line which name to put on what shirt and all that kind of stuff? You guys have that all figured out. Can you share with us a few of the challenges of live printing?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot, and it's not an easy thing to have gotten to the point where we're at now. So this is like over years of like refining different methods, and we're still not perfectionists at this. I mean, we have things happen all the time, shipments are delayed or whatever. So we have a really great team, and there's different responsibilities and roles for the team in-house. So there's people who are and staff that are responsible for logistics. There's staff that are responsible for sales. There's staff that are responsible for the event production itself. There's staff who are responsible for the R&D, like we showed when you guys came by, so that's specifically on site. We know how to produce the items or replicate it in a manner that is fast and easy for everybody. We have technical managers. So say somebody's on site and their embroidery unit is down. We have an event technical lead who they can call and ask how to fix that specific issue. We'll record videos sometimes on Loom or YouTube or whatever it is, and we can send it out to the team. And then on top of that, we built kind of like an infrastructure for our customization on site. And what we had showed you was our moderation system. So when an order goes through our order kiosk or tablet, it goes into like we call a moderation tool. And the moderation tool will show every order that has been placed that day or that event. And we're able to, toggle between different events because sometimes there's multiple events on the same day. But for that specific event, our staff can see the orders as they're coming through from latest to oldest. And there's order numbers. We ask for the guests' information and names. We'll see the design that they're customizing on site, so we know kind of what we're going to be printing. And then, if it's a sized item like a shirt, or if it's, something that's very specific, like a different water bottle color or something along those lines, we're able to see all that information in real time as it comes through to our systems. So you kind of have is the order moderator who's running the entire thing. And then usually they're going to be the one who's in charge of kind of like getting the flow and handing off those items to then somebody who's kind of like an expediter. So there's somebody who's going to be between the moderator and the actual printers, or if you're laser engraving, there's somebody who's going to be expediting. And this isn't for every event, but when you have a couple of people on site, you got to have specific roles. And then expediter will take the size shirt for that event, and then they'll take the vinyl customization that has been plotted, and then they'll hand that to the actual person who is then pressing it. And then once it's done, we'll call out that attendee's name, or we can text them, to tell them if the order is ready, depending upon the event and, the structure of the event, like a convention or conference. People want to come back later if they're in meetings or whatever. So there's different routes that we can go with it.
Do you ever get the customer involved other than just the customization part? Like, do they ever create anything?
If you're doing patches or transfers, and you're not using any sort of software in between ordering and actually producing items, what we've seen that they really like to do is be able to place the different patches or transfers onto their items, and then they can kind of see it happening in real time. It's funny because when we first started doing this, and when you go back to Print Hustlers, we used to do so much live screen printing. I mean, that was our main, that's our bread and butter. We would do so many of those events and activations, but now it's our 5th most popular activation. Like, we can see, data in our dashboard that, transfers or laser engraving or patches or sublimation are way more popular. I don't know what it is, increased demand on like personalization. And so when they're doing patches and transfers, we can allow like attendees can kind of get into the mix and help us design and customize the shirts. But with throughput, I think is always a big question. When there is a big line of people, it's really hard to let every single person just go in and go wild with these things. But there are times we did an event for Figma. And the attendees were able to use icons from the Figma software, the web design software. And they were able to take icons from the actual UI interface and place it onto their tote bags, like their favorite 6. And then they could place it where they wanted to. And then there was personal sayings that they could then add onto the tote bags as well. And that was specifically for a Figma conference. So it kind of like created like a really cool giveaway for these people who use that program on the daily. Now they had a tote bag that they were able to customize with their favorite icons from the user interface.
There's just so many options and so many things. It's crazy.
I know. I like how you divide it up though. I mean, because I remember, going back to days when I was trying to do things solo, and if I were to be doing a team, which we don't really do much of anymore, but we used to do all kinds of different, markets. And I always remembered that when I'm trying to choose a shirt size and maybe even a shirt color, and then choose the right name for that, certain size, and then I walk over, and then I was also doing the pressing. Well, then I would mess up. Inevitably, at some point along I would just put the wrong name on the wrong size or something because I was trying to do too many things. But you called it an expediter, and that's what we eventually, that model we moved to, and it was just went so much faster, right? Because somebody just, like, I was in charge, or somebody's in charge of crossing off the name and doing the size large, whatever that name is. You find the name, the plot, like the vinyl, and then you find the right size shirt and you hand it to the person pressing, and then all the person pressing does is just press the shirt. And so, it's just so much easier. And I don't know why it is and why it gets so complicated when you have to do too many things at once, but I just inevitably would screw stuff up.
Yeah, it's a stressful situation. It's almost kind of like a yes chef kind of situation, right? Where like the person is calling out the order, and then the rest of the staff can then complete these things. And it's not necessarily like they're calling it out, over like over everybody, but people will, the staff will get the orders and then produce those items, and then kind of be able to get those out as they're being ordered. So it is kind of run like a kitchen in a weird way, if that makes sense. Like, you're producing these things, you have the ingredients, you're getting the order and then you're handing it out. And then almost like the last person will be the waiter, like our last staff who press the item, then they get to hand it over on like a tray or something. So there's different roles, and I think as long as the staff has their role on site and they know how to produce the item, then you you're basically creating like a mini kitchen on site. If that makes sense. It kind of does.
Just with less emotional damage and scarring, like in a kitchen, just screaming at each other.
Less Crocs too, because I know a lot of the chefs wear Crocs. But I don't think
there's a lot of Crocs. Actually, there's a lot of Crocs here these days. But and by the way, did either of you watch Bear?
I'm still finishing the new season.
I had to turn it. After the third or fourth episode, I turned
the kitchen. Was it the one where they were at the family's house having dinner for like whatever it was?
It's been a while. I don't remember,
Christmas
but I was like, you know what? This is stressing. This feels too much like my shop, and I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
And I want to try and go over there and solve problems, and I can't watch this. I don't think I can watch this. And everybody's like, "Oh man, you should give it a chance." But it was just too stressful for me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very stressful show.
Max, I want to hear your. This might be weird, but like, what is your elevator pitch to clients, or not necessarily like, why even involve you in an event? Like,
yeah, sure. So I guess like our tagline, or like, when you're ever having your why, right? Like what's the why of your business? So ours is transforming event attendees into creators, artists, and like it's very specific to creating brand connections. And so we're able to transform an event attendee into an artist and creator on site. And we do that through customization of items. And in the world we're in, specifically garment decoration or, promotional items or whatever it is, what are we doing on the daily? We're printing items to advertise something, whether it's a brand, whether it's like a sports team or, there's so many different things that we're advertising. There's so many of these different items. So we take it one step further, and like we had talked about earlier, is that it's really creating a connection between the brand and the consumer. And I don't like to use the term consumer, but that's kind of what it is in the marketing world. Yeah. And it's creating that moment of like why this brand matters to this specific attendee at this event. And, using the US Open as an example, right? So we're on site with American Express, and then we're always 95% of our activations, we're working with an agency. And for this agency, we're working with an agency called Momentum, and they're a really cool partner that we have, and they bring us on to tons of these different events. And American Express is one of the main sponsors of the US Open in New York. And we're on site for, I think, like 3.5 or 4 weeks straight, just customizing these tennis balls for these attendees. So when you do that for American Express, they see the value in, these 30,000 tennis balls. Like for them, it's a drop in the bucket in terms of like, how much they're spending on traditional advertising, but they're in front of 30,000 people. And the next time somebody goes to open up a credit card or a charge card or wherever it is, they may say, "Oh, American Express, I remember them. I got this custom tennis ball from it." They obviously care about their user base, or somebody who's like opening up a card. So next time I go, I'm going to go check them out. So American Express automatically opens up that kind of channel for their end user.
And they have a takeaway to sit on their desk or mantle or whatever to remind them of that event. And if it says American Express or whatever, then they're going to think of American Express.
Yeah, I think they do a leveled up option for Centurion card or people who actually have a card. So the tennis ball is specifically for people who are just like going through the system. But if you have a card and you're a specific user on site at this US Open, they actually create a lounge where you can go into, you can get drinks and food and a couple other things, but then you can also get this cool DOP kit bag. And those were all custom made, and we had them sent over, and we did this whole this cool DOP kit. It had pre-embroidered information or pre-embroidered American Express logo on it. And then on site, they got to then customize patches to put onto their DOP kit. So that was like the leveled up experience. They can still get a tennis ball, but they could go into this lounge and they could walk away with it. And most people travel to the US Open. So now they have something they could travel with whenever they're going, on trips or whatnot. And it's all branded American Express.
And that's something too, like I said, like we do such like a dumbed down version of just the screen printing and doing like our, 100-mile radius. But it's like our pitch to a lot of these people that come to us and ask is that it's like zero waste for the most part, because normally they would be like, all right, well, I'm just going to order 500 shirts for this event. I'm going to guess the sizes and then I'm just going to hand them out. Like instead, if we come, like we print exactly what it is for that person and there's no extras, there's no whatever. And if we're charging, it's cheaper for them to have us there than it is for them to order just a random bulk amount of things. So is that kind of the
and
case
it's something they're going to wear.
Like, right. Like it's more, hey, we're instead of just ordering a bunch of random shit and having somebody who doesn't want to stand behind a random desk handing out goodies, it's a whole like just fun experience to be in front of.
Yeah. And again, like there's been so many times where we've done repeat events over the years. So like if we're at like a convention or conference and a brand will bring us back from the previous year, and like say we've been on site for 5 years, we'll see these attendees like wearing shirts from 5 years back to this specific event, and they'll come up and they'll show like our staff and like, hey, check this out, I got this shirt 5 years ago. And they keep these things a little bit longer than they would a traditional shirt because they got to be a part of creating that specific shirt. So it just has that little extra like special like to everybody who's on site.
Mm-hmm. So Max, how does it work with the example of SNS and American Apparel? Did they come to you and say what they wanted? Like, we have an idea, we want you to use, puff vinyl, and we want you to customize or personalize the back of a shirt. Or did you present ideas to them? Or in the, I guess the example of the US Open, did that agency come and say, hey, we want to do tennis balls, figure out a way to do this? Or did you present the idea of tennis balls? How does that work? Like, generally,
it's funny because it's kind of like all of those combined, right? So there's certain agencies who maybe have like 10 items, right? They're like, which of these items will work on site? And then we send it down to the R&D and we try to figure out what customization method will work best for a specific item. So it's like, does laser work best? Are we going to be doing, sublimation on something? Like, does it have a poly coating or something like that we can do sublimation with? And then sometimes there's a really open-ended pitch deck. Like, we just want to customize an item. So what we'll do is we'll come together with, 3 different price point items. So it's like, here's something that's like in the higher price point bucket. Like, you want to do full on customized jackets. It's going to cost, this much per head. And then if you want to do something that's a little bit more in line with like a medium priced event, here's 3 different kinds of experiences we can do within that budget, and then here's the lowest tier. So like, here's a tote bag, or here's something specific. The cool thing is that the different customization methods, so whether it's sublimation or screen printing or laser or whatever, it can work on all 3 price points. It just depends on the scaling and the staff that we need to consider going on site. So for instance, something like embroidery, if you want to get through a lot of attendees on site, you have to scale your staff, you have to scale your equipment, you have to basically scale everything. So if you're trying to get through a large throughput crowd, we'll usually tell like our clients, embroidery is not going to be a good activation for this specific event unless you have a high budget, just due to the amount of labor it's going to require for us to be on site. But you could do patches on site, or we could do vinyl plotting, or we could do sublimation. So here's ways to bring down those costs to still come on site and give you something that is, personal to your guests.
And sometimes they buy the item, right? Like if you do like an activation for, say, like Levi's or Nike or something, it's like, buy this denim jacket or buy these shoes, and then the customization comes after, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to be doing an example of that is this weekend, we're going to be doing 6 Target stores where we're going to be doing like a back to school event. And these are all in like the major college markets. Like you got Ohio State, Alabama, and a couple of these other like big college towns. And people the store attendees can buy specific items like a college hat. They can buy a tank top. They can buy like a hair bow. There's a couple different things that they're going to be able to take and then have it personalized with, their name, their monogram, something that they want to put onto that specifically. They're going to be able to customize that item after they buy it on site at Target. So it's kind of like a one-up giveaway for that specific event. Now, on the flip side of it, something like Comic-Con, where we're working with Paramount and Nickelodeon, they want to sell items on site. And it may not be to make a bunch of money, but it's to recoup some of these costs. So on the floor at Comic-Con, we built customization software that the Comic-Con attendees were able to choose from a bunch of the different properties that Nickelodeon owns. So whether it's like Ninja Turtles or SpongeBob or Avatar, they were able to put all those characters onto the same shirt, and we did flip-flops. And they're able to drag and drop these different designs, resize them, scale them so that they could turn them, but they could overlap them. And it created you could create kind of your own Nickelodeon IP shirt, if that makes sense. And they were able to do that on a shirt. And then they're also able to customize flip flops. So they would buy those maybe like 20 or 25 bucks for the Comic-Con attendees. So there are certain activations where people are buying, but I would say 99% of ours are geared towards that marketing giveaway.
And that's more of like a quick flow thing too. If it's like a giveaway, because you always end up with way more lines. You end up with just a flow of people. If it's a sale thing, are you ever just kind of sitting and waiting? Or, I mean, usually at these big events, they're pretty busy anyway. Yeah, no, we did a Dick's Sporting Goods Olympic kind of customization, and that was at I think 8 or something locations in last July, and we were customizing shirts that had LeBron and Mbappe and a couple other these Olympic athletes, and they were selling the shirts on site. So I think you had to, it wasn't free with purchase, so that was a lot slower than if it were add on to an item that you already have or you're buying and then add it onto your item. So those shirts were for sale. And some days they were doing 10 or 15, and some days they were doing 25 per store. So it's a little bit slower. But I think it depends on the specific type of customization, because there are companies who specialize on customizing on site at sporting events. And I don't want to say big sporting events, but gymnastics tournaments and swim tournaments and lacrosse tournaments. And they do this all over the country. And basically what they do is they agree to give a portion of their profits to the company that's hiring them, or the tournament that's hiring them. So they'll bring in everything kind of free of charge and then give the profit over. And it's a great business model if you have it set up. But it's not something that we would specifically get into too much. Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, we haven't done a live printing event for a really long time. The last one we did was, I wouldn't call it a disaster, but stuff went wrong. And, the load in, it was muddy, and then we had to park really far away and all this kind of stuff. And the event coordinator wasn't very flexible or helpful. And so I was just curious, do you ever run into that or can you share your worst experience, live activation experience, where you lost money? Because we lost money in that event. And I was man, I'm never doing this again. Why did we do this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I'm just trying to think of the couple big ones that come to mind. One, say a pallet of gear doesn't arrive on time, right? Or it's delayed or something along those lines. That can affect the events. So you're without, say, your gear for an event. So we're doing a Super Bowl customization, and it's snowing in Dallas, and none of the gear arrives. So we're scrambling to try to find where the gear is, and none of the roads are open because it's icy. So we've had that kind of experience that happened before, where the gear is not there. On the flip side, there's also travel issues where staff's supposed to be on site to go load in for an event, but their flights get canceled. So then you're left without staff who's supposed to be there loading in to set up, flight cancellation. So that's a big thing that happens. Maybe forgetting certain portions of the gear, or the items have been lost in transit. So there's different things that have happened. They can be pretty specific in terms of not having an event go well. Printers breaking on site. So when you're doing sublimation and you're using technology, having that issue where something's just not printing out very well and having to kind of figure it out. I think what a good example was at Lollapalooza recently. And this wasn't an issue with the actual customization or the process, but we were doing socks, and we're doing full sublimation socks front and back. And it's a slow process to print out an 11 by 14 sheet of paper to then put the socks onto. So when you're on site, you want to have multiple printers running at the same time. And even with that situation, you're going to be running behind. So one of our technical event leads had to actually take the printers to their hotel room and print just sheets and sheets and sheets of these socks so
Overnight
when they showed up
or
on
something?
yeah, so that he had 3 stacked up and he was pooling the printers together and he was just mashing these things out.
He's just
when they
kicked
showed up,
back eating Dominoes, watching Shark Tank and fucking hitting print over and over again.
Max,
yeah.
so
I mean,
like
internet issues, everything. There's so many different issues that you run into.
do you think then it's wise, or maybe you've got something built in, a clause built into the contract to say, look,
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
like any act of nature, like let's say, it snows and the flights are canceled or whatever, how does that work? Do they sue you and say, oh, you guys suck, you didn't get here and you messed up our whole event? I mean, what happens in that instance?
So we have terms and conditions for all of these different activations. So like when we sign a contract with a client and we're on site, we send over our basic terms and conditions that kind of outlines all these different things. A work back schedule, because sometimes we need, 2 months to build out an app and then order different items and supplies. And like, if we're producing the items from scratch, we need to have this work back schedule in place. And like, I can't tell you how many times like we just aren't able to follow that schedule because of like delays from the client approving assets and whatever it is. So we have that in place so that everybody signs off on it. So that it's notified, like here's our, our rules for these events. We need to meet all of these timelines. And if for some reason something goes wrong beyond those, like, the acts of God or whatever, we've been on site and I think this weekend down in Miami, we're doing a big tour of Walmart and it was raining. So they had to shut the activation down. We were supposed to do 1,000 shirts and they only got through 200, but we're already there on site. We've already produced the items. So they can't really at this point, say like, oh, we're not going to go ahead and pay for the activation. That whole activation is already paid for. So it's specifically, it's very hard in like the acts of God category. But most of the time, I think we're able to work it out because we have those terms and conditions in place.
Just want to make sure that, you're getting taken care of and you're not screwing them over. But sometimes it might be a good relationship. Like you said, you've been working with this one agency for so long and you don't want to sour that relationship. Do you kind of sometimes give them a little bit of wiggle room to be like, all right, well, make it up on the next one or something?
Yeah, absolutely. We had one where we weren't actually customizing shoes on site, but we've been doing a lot of like Nike shoe customization, and the specific shoe that we were supposed to be supplying, it was for the Super Bowl, and Amazon was a client. And in this like lounge that they had set up for all of these like high profile, personalities and celebrities, and not everybody was, but they went through this activation and they were able to customize the Nike Air Force Ones, where they could customize their swoosh, do a laser engraving on the side of the shoe, and then we would box it up and send it out to each of these like event attendees after the event. We had something had happened with supplying the actual shoes, like getting that many Air Force Ones would just ended up being like insane. Like we had somebody who had helped us before. It was kind of like a middleman and pulling those shoes in. And for this specific instance, we just weren't able to get all the Air Force Ones, and timelines just kept getting pushed back and back and back and back. And eventually we just had to cancel like 35% of the pairs of shoes that were going out.
Somebody got some Airwalks and some New Balance and whatnot.
So it made it, that was one of those instances where it's really hard. Like you just can't control it. Like Nike doesn't sell those as wholesale, even if you have contacts inside, like they kind of protect sending out too many of them at once. So yeah, I mean, we had to, issue a refund for that specifically. But, we left in good standing because, there's a lot of the process that we had already taken care of. And, it's just a matter of communication. And if something's going wrong, just being upfront with it, and it happens sometimes, it's like with a shirt order, something's going to go wrong. It's going to get damaged, or with anything, right? Like there's going to be an issue no matter how prepared you are.
Yeah.
Something's going to go wrong.
And I think to kind of circle back to what Andy talked about in the beginning of like meeting you at whatever it was, 2018 or something, and technology changes. And you said back then a lot of it was screen printing and heat press and all this other stuff. What do you see for the customization space in the next 5 years? Do you feel like it's only growing and there's more options and there's this and this? Or do you feel like it's more like the screen printing industry where like we have to pivot constantly or whatever? Or are you already just fucking doing anything and everything?
I think it's kind of a combination of both, right? So we all know that a lot of like these, like if we're in our print shop, a lot of the small run orders are being taken over by TTF. Like there's no way around that. So somebody could go on Supercolor, or they go to whatever other transfer site they want to go to, and they can order transfers, press them at home. And for them, it's easier to do that for 24 shirts or 12 shirts than buying, a full screen setup at a shop and like going through the process to do this. So I think that there is going to be some like pivot for a lot of the businesses and, screen printing companies that are out there. I think in terms of like the live customization, I think that personalization, hyper personalization, making unique statement items for everybody individually is a really big point for these brands right now. Being different and not having the same thing across the board, I think is really important to a lot of these brands. And just recently, probably with like the last like six months to a year, we've seen a lot more retail based experiential activation. So whether that's going into Target or whether it's going into Walmart's, we're doing a tour, like a 28 date tour with Stanley, customizing water bottles at all these different colleges. And that starts next week. So you're seeing these retail brands use it as a way to keep their brand loyalists happy. Right. And like,
which is funny, you say the Stanley thing too, is like, I was thinking about that because I go to like Target and stuff with my daughter all the time. And it's like, she's one of those people that's like, has 900 water bottles, like Stanley's for every occasion, whatever. And then you're like, all right, this is going to be a fad. This is going to be gone, whatever. And you can already see that it's not like as crazy as it was when Stanley had, like everyone had to have a Stanley. Now I see that they're being smart about it and they're pivoting to like customized bottles. Like you're saying, like now they're like, okay, let's do these activations and we'll do it to where you can like, add things on. And now there's all these like add-ons to the water bottles of like pouches and like, wallets and stuff that go on your water bottle and everything else. And my daughter's also really into like Olivia Rodrigo. And I got an email from Stanley that was like, we have the exclusive Olivia Rodrigo Stanley water bottle for $75, like one day only. It's for sale, like get in line to get it kind of thing. And it's like, I could see you for more stuff like that, where like this brand has to pivot and kind of make things more custom. And there's people like you to just be like, yeah, we can do this. And
yeah, I think it's definitely going that direction where the retail space sees it and they kind of feel that that's kind of where they're going to have to go to bring people back to stores and retail, make it an experience. Like, we know so many of these retail stores are dying, but like, what are ways that they can still encourage, the consumers to come in and purchase these items? Like what kind of add-on can they do? And having that personalization to an item that they already buy is a really big deal.
Right. And I think kind of to wrap all that up is it's not necessarily that you're just making more items for consumers. Like you said, you didn't like to use the word consumer, but it's like you're making a fun experience at an event or at a store or whatever, to where it's making a core memory of that event. Like us going to S&S and American Apparel, like I think of that event and I think of us talking and having a good time and hanging out, but I also think of hanging out with you guys and going through the line and making the custom shirt and like the tooth gem thing. And like that sticks in my brain of like these fun things that we did at this event, not necessarily that event specifically. You know what I mean? So I think you in general are making things for people to have something to grab onto for this event as like a memory or a take home that they can see it and then be reminded of that event.
Yeah, that's kind of what we always say, like make merch the experience. Like that's what the experience is on site. Like you're making something that you can either hand out, right? But you kind of like twisted that specific item or whatever it is, that subset. And now you're making something, an experience out of just handing that item out. So you're adding more to a traditional type of customer, giveaway, right? So it's just like you're doing something different that is still fun for these people. And you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're doing things within a specific, I don't want to say wheel that are changing it up. Right. So it's like you're taking that and turning it into something a little bit different.
I agree.
If I have a brand, and I guess I do because I have a shop, but I mean, I think that if I were to have a marketing budget that I was going to spend on marketing, I would absolutely choose a live activation situation as something where I have my customers get experience instead of the traditional marketing of, television ads or billboard, whatever that is. I love this type of marketing. I think that you really connect with your potential customer or consumer, sorry. And I think that it's like there's so much value there, so much more than who pays attention to TV commercials anymore? They're more of an interruption of.
It's so different. Like instead of just getting a piece of mail or like you said, a TV commercial or a billboard, it's like a fun thing that they can interact with.
Yeah.
Well, and then not only that, it's like at SNS, you have influencers who are taking videos of it and sharing with their friends and people or followers to them. So that's for the brand too. They're getting those additional eyeballs on these things that are happening. And while they're not there, they're like, well, next time I want to go to an event, I want to customize my American Express bag, or I want to get a free, custom tennis ball. Like, how do I have that happen? So then you start following these brands to see like when the next customization will happen. But you see it more and more. I mean, it's happening. There's other companies out there doing it on a cool level. There's one up your way in New York, Inkwells, that I follow and we talked to a bit. I know you had Silkscreen Machine on. Those guys do a lot. I know Barrel Maker has live printing. And there's a couple other companies out there who do it and do it. They do a lot of cool stuff on these different items. And it's a pretty small market. There's not a lot of companies who are doing it. So the space is pretty open in terms of like who's doing what, but it does take, there's a lot of moving parts to like get into it. So like when somebody's thinking about doing a live event, if you start it simple, you can kind of learn what to do, what not to do. And I don't think there's any shortcuts to just like being like in the customization space on site at these events. So you have to kind of build it up for a company to trust you. Like if somebody called you guys up and they're like, hey, we want to do, 5,000 water bottles on site, and we need to have a customization app, and we want to like attendees choose their name, a jersey number, and then a design on those water bottles. You're going to be like, I don't know how to get that done. Yeah. Right. Like, I don't know how to get that done. So you have to work up to those types of like customization events. But there's spaces for smaller ones, like you said, with like live screen print. I know you've done stuff with Dick's in your like local area. Like there's so many opportunities for customization on site. We don't have to travel, and you don't have to like bring in like these crazy logistics. Like DTF transfers and letting attendees choose like different placements on their shirts to create their own custom item or tote bag, or like you said, Andy, like the patches on the hat, like she was in the Ozarks selling these custom hats at a bar, and there was a line of a ton of people. But like you're creating an experience out of something, and it doesn't have to be something crazy big. It doesn't have to be for a big brand. It can be for something smaller and local. And there's so many opportunities for these screen printing shops and, companies that are maybe not able to get out as much to do these types of things. But it's just a matter of like trying to get out there. You have to be creative. Yeah. You have to be willing to take risks. It's because you're not going to make money right at the bat. But if you can take that risk to kind of go on site and do it, maybe it will work out. Maybe it's something you can add into your revenue stream of your business. Because I know a lot of companies are having that issue right now. Like, where do you go next? Like you were saying, within the next 5 years, like what's going to happen to the industry? Like where can you go to bring in that a little bit of additional revenue stream?
Yeah. And just to inspire like the listeners of like, if you are doing a live printing, maybe spice it up a little bit, maybe add in a little item or something different or whatever, and slowly get there. But never going to take over the world like family or what, I can't remember. What did you say?
World Authority.
World Authority. There it is.
That's like a 90s hip hop act name,
For sure.
Max, before you go, we have only two today. Actually, only one over under, and then a question. But I think this first over under, or the only over under, is a really important one because I have strong feelings about it. Truffles.
Jesus.
I don't know that I don't know that I've ever eaten truffle. I had truffle oil, but I don't know that I've actually eaten truffle, so I can't give an over under. Truffle oil seemed good when I was cooking with it. So I would say it's properly rated. Have you had truffles?
Andy has brought this up so many times over the last couple of days.
It's Max's fault, though. It's Max's fault.
Infuriating him.
Did you eat?
Yes.
Did you eat it at the Major Domo?
Yeah.
So yeah, hold on. We went there and we were hungry after the event, and Max told us to go to this place, and it was amazing, by the way. Like, everything was really good. We love that place. But one of the things we ordered was, what was it called? Was it? I'm gonna mess this up.
Truffle honey ricotta.
No, there's no ricotta.
I don't know then.
It was the
Bing.
bread.
You're talking about the Bing.
The Bing. Yeah.
Okay.
So you get this like almost like naan, like flatbread, and then they give you this like truffle butter or whatever. Well, I don't know. What was it, like $30 for some bread and butter?
That's an LA price right there. That's
basically.
So I think the funny thing is we got the stuff, and it was good. Like I thought it was good.
It was
delicious. But anyway, like, just to see like $30 for basically this, like, fucking call it what it is. It's bread and butter where you put like black shavings on top of. But it was truffle butter, but they had like truffle shavings on top. Well, you tried the truffles or whatever, and you didn't like them, or they were bitter or something?
No, it was fine. No, it tasted good. I was just,
Were you expecting more?
He's brought this up like 6 times.
First of all, it comes out in like, it was a teaspoon of honey.
Yeah.
In this bowl.
It was small.
It was like barely any. There was like, you could buy, I don't know. Anyway, I don't mean to complain. Let's
just call it a thimble.
A thimble of honey. And then there was I thought there was some sort of cheese there, and then shavings of some truffle. And it was good and all, but I just like making fun of it because it was the typical thing that we're in LA. We paid $30 for bread and butter, and it wasn't even enough like to go around. Like, we had to tear the pieces of bread to share, and we're like, my God, just bring us one more slice of bread, would you? But it was really good. But I think, in my opinion,
we got like 6
overrated.
things there.
Yeah, it's
overrated. Okay.
Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff there.
We didn't just sit down and have bread and butter for $30. Like, we had like it was one of those where you get like almost like apps or a plate, but it's for the table. And I think we got like 5 or 6 things. Everything was really good. And we all mentioned that everything we got was stuff we've never had before. So to try all of that stuff was really good. And then, it was
the truffle butter was the only one that we were making fun of because it just came out in the smallest amount. We all looked at each other like, what do we do with this?
Just like burn $30. You might as well just do that now.
Seriously, yeah.
Well, you have to try Momofuku when you go to Vegas though, because like that's his other, his main restaurant. So that when you're out there, they make some amazing noodle bowls and stuff.
I'll make sure to get the truffle butter. Truffle butter Bing.
So overrated then. Overrated.
Truffles are overrated. That restaurant is underrated. Very good restaurant.
Yeah, it was very good.
So the other, it's more of a question, not an over under, but weirdest thing you have customized.
Weirdest thing we've customized. That's a good question. We've done weird luggage. Like sometimes we do really ugly bucket hats. There's so many items over the years that have been super random. I
might want to tweak this question a little bit. What's an item?
Trying to think of odd things.
If you can't think of a weird thing, what's an item that you think is underrated that people should customize more that they don't? Like, you're like, man, we made these. These are sweet. I really wish people got these more.
From our team, Adam would say belt bags, like waist, like the over the shoulder bags.
Yeah.
Yes, because you can get those. Like, if you were to say you had an event where you need to do like 500 people fast, you want to add patches to them, you want to add transfers to them. They're cheap. So if you wanted to create your own, and you could find a vendor, through ASI, PPAI, whatever, you could create a custom belt bag, do 300 of them for like $5 a piece, right? The same price as a shirt. You could get them delivered to you, and then they could be branded. Like, you could have the strap branded. You could do whatever you want on that specific belt bag ahead of the actual activation. And then on site, you could add on those patches or transfers. Yeah, and then you're creating a branded bag for like the same price as you would doing like a live screen printing event. And on site, you're just giving like a little bit more of like an upsell to that specific item. So,
I love that you picked that item, because my daughter is big into like having her friends over and everything. And she had a sleepover for her birthday with like 5 of her friends. And we went to the mall. Syracuse has this like really big mall. And I don't know anything about this because I don't shop really. And my daughter's like, oh, can we go to Lululemon? And like, I want to get like stuff for me and my friends. And I was like, okay, I just thought it was like a random store or whatever. So they go in, and then my daughter shows me this shoulder bag. It's like, regular this size bag, and it's got the shoulder strap. And on the strap, it just says like, I don't know, Lululemon or whatever. There's nothing really on the bag other than their little logo. And I'm like, yeah, you guys can each get one. And again, you're like $5 customized bag and like all this other stuff. They were $60 a piece.
That's a lot.
And I didn't realize, like, I was like, yeah, throw them on the counter. And he was like, oh, it's $340. And I was like, what the fuck? Like for 5 little shoulder bags? Like I thought these were literally like $15 or $10 or something.
I mean, they are $5. You know what I mean? Like,
but not when you put Lululemon on them.
Exactly. But you can get the same ones. Like you can find the same factories who produce this stuff, and then you can get them replicated. Obviously you don't want to like infringe on IP that they have or whatever, but a lot of these things are just already available. So you can get those custom colors and you can do whatever you want with them. And then you have these cool, Lululemon dupes that you can customize on site. And we get those a lot where somebody's like, hey, I want to customize that specific item from this brand. Okay, cool. Well, let's find one that's similar to that and works on site. Because sometimes the materials don't end up working. So you find maybe a material that works a lot better. But we've been asked multiple times to copy that Lululemon
but the other
bag
part of that is it's perceived value too. Like they could get a shoulder bag from Toyota, and then they think in their mind like, oh, this is really cool customized Toyota bag. This is like a $50 bag. And it's like, no, it's $5 and they got what they wanted out of it.
Yeah, you create that experience for them. But yeah, I think it's, there's so many things you can do with something. You just have to think outside the box. Like there's so many different avenues you can go with it. You just have to be creative and like coming up with concepts.
Yeah. Well, Max, thank you so much for showing us around in LA. Thank you for taking us to lunch and taking your time. You and your team, you guys were all great. And thank you for taking the time for us.
Yeah, it was good to hang, and we'll see you guys at Trent Hustlers.
Hell yeah, Cleveland.
Cleveland, rock and roll Hall of Fame, right?
All right. Later, dude.
All right, have a good one. Later, guys.
See you, Max.